BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
You did OCR Worlds this weekend and all sorts of stuff. We have a lot of stuff. I see you're even wearing the jacket. So.
Oh, I'm like all decked out and everything. OCR Worlds. I didn't even realize it. I have like the finisher shirt. I had the sweatshirt. I had the sunglasses. I'm not wearing my bands right now, but I haven't decided if that's going to be a thing this year, or if I'm like good just keeping them on the medals now.
I don't know. I mean, it's just seeing what you did, which, by the way, anyone who's like listening, because I'm sure it's already started. This is Megan. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'm horrible about introducing because we just get in and we start talking. So,
oh, yeah.
So
it's just easy for us. We just go and, say, hey, how's it going?
It is. I mean, when we follow both each other on Facebook, so we see what's coming up, and it's like I see your post, and I'm like, I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
So tell us about OCR Worlds.
OCR Worlds is the best event of the year. I mean, I love Indian Mud Run. Indian Mud Run is an incredible event, so well run, but it's not the same kind of atmosphere because OCR Worlds, at least when it's in Stratton, when it was in Blue Mountain, it had this strong community feel because everybody is staying in the village. Mm-hmm. So no matter where you're walking in, you're seeing somebody that you know everywhere. And, this time around, I literally walked into the place that we were staying at. I found some randoms on the OCRWC athlete group who had space in their house. And I always find whatever house I stay in, there's drama. Like, I'm not going to stay with people I know. I don't want drama. So I found randoms and we walked into the house and I'm walking around and I'm like, I know I stayed in this building before, but I think it was up a level. And okay, yeah, I was definitely in this building. I'm walking around. This kind of looks familiar. I go to enter the Wi-Fi data and I'm like, I'm already connected to the Wi-Fi. And it turns out it was a place that I stayed in like 2018.
They haven't changed the password though.
Yeah. So, there are so many different places to stay. And of all the places, I stayed in a place that I had already stayed at with a completely different group of people of all that. So then, yeah, there's just everybody everywhere you turn. It's incredible. I absolutely love it. It is the best social weekend of the year, and it is the best race weekend of the year, but it is absolutely brutal.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, they really outdid themselves this year. I came off of the 3K and I found Sid and Aaron and I said, that was the hardest 3K I've ever ran. They put in some of the hardest obstacles of the race for the year. And then they had them like back to back to back. And then this horrible climb right in the middle. And nobody wants to climb like 400, 500 feet during a 3K. So we had to go up. We went across a couple obstacles. We came right back down and we finished off in a gnarly gauntlet of obstacles. And then the 15K, it was never-ending climbs. And when they did have rigs, they would pack them back to back to back. At one point, they had the low rig into their 2014 rig. And the low rig was probably the hardest low rig I've ever seen. I had to like figure 4 the entire thing across. And then I got to the 2014 rig and I'm like, this rig doesn't even look hard. I got on and my forearms were just so blown out from having to figure 4 that low rig that, I got through on the first try, but I definitely took my time, like rested my arms when I could. And I got off of the 2014 rig and there was another woman coming off at the same time as me. And she's like, wow, I'm gassed. I'm like, my arms are pumped out. If they had another thing in this section, I would be stuck here for a long time. But luckily it was right before their horrendous death march up to the top of the mountain. So by the time I actually got back down to another rig, I was fine.
Which honestly, it sounds like great planning on their part because it's like, they give you
100%.
that looks totally easy, but it looks easy, but we just smoked your forearms, and we know we just smoked your forearms. So good luck.
It was the best race planning I've ever seen. And I talked to a couple of the guys, like the build OCR, I forget what they call themselves at this point, but Sid and Aaron, David, all of them, Battle of the Lions, Race Ready Obstacles. I talked to a couple of them about it, and I was joking around, and I'm like, whoever thought it was a good idea to, zigzag us up and back down the mountain, yeah, I hate you. And they're laughing, and they're like, well, championship race requires championship elevation gain and championship obstacles. And I'm like, no, I completely agree. I was one of the 20 something % of females who kept their band on the 15K. I kept my band across all 3 races.
That's
And
awesome.
it was a fight. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it, but it was so much fun, so hard. My legs are smoked. I couldn't have asked for a better organized course.
That's awesome. I mean, I wish. I mean, that was one of the things that, on a lot of the courses I've done where I'm completely smoked afterwards, that's where you're like, I hate this. You suck. And then you're done with it. And you're like, but I want to do it again.
Yeah. And it definitely felt like Killington vibes. Especially with the zigzagging up and down and up and down and all of the climbing. But it was definitely like the Killington feel of, oh, but I want to do it again. I want to do it again. I want to do it again. Until after the team race and your forearms are so blown out, you can't open your hands, and you're like, nope, not going out on the charity. Nope, don't make me climb anymore. I climbed up to Valkyrie to go talk to somebody. And I'm like climbing up that little bit of the mountain screaming, I hate you. Why are you making me do this? And then we're just watching everybody cut the climb, go straight across from Force 5 rig to Valkyrie. And he's like, guys, you got to go up the mountain. You got to come back down. They're like, nope. We're just taking a hard right at everything. We're just doing a nice circle. We're not going up. Right. People were just making their own course on the charity race. I was surprised to see anybody climb at all at that point. Because on the 15K, we got close to 4,000 feet of elevation in 10 miles.
That's impressive. That's
it
really
hurt.
Yeah.
It really hurt. The climb we did on the 3K, we had to do that 4 times on the 15K. And then you also had to march up to the top of the mountain and back down.
That sounds horrible. But at the same time, it's like if it was something that we really didn't want to do, we wouldn't be signing back up for it every year. And that's one of the things. And OCR Worlds is one that's on my bucket list. I want that one. I want to go there. But
I would definitely put it on your list for next year. I've heard some mumblings from some of my insider sources that I'm not going to reveal yet, because I apparently posted a video I wasn't supposed to post during
somebody's in trouble
the
again.
weekend, and I don't want to get in trouble anymore from any of those guys. But I'm not gonna reveal what they told me, and there's nothing set in stone. But if I would say definitely try to make it out next year.
I'm gonna have to look at that one. I definitely have to look on where that is. And is it always this time of year every year?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that one. So especially if I'm, if everything goes right and I'm living closer to that, so which would be good. So that's just awesome. It does, and I mean, it's one of those things. I'm gonna have to work on my upper body strength. I mean, I did Tough Mudder this weekend, and I was so mad at myself. But I'm having a shoulder issue from the weekend before, but I almost, which I should have, but I almost made Funky Monkey, but I missed. I lost my momentum partway through, right on the last one, and I couldn't reach for the last reach, and I fell in the water. But
oh, yikes! I'm sorry to hear that.
It's okay. I mean, but it's the water. So I mean, and I'll be honest, and the Tough Mudder, this was just fun.
Yeah. Well, fun. That's all Tough Mudder is at this point, unless you're going for, the Holy Grail or World's Toughest Mudder or whatever else. You're not going to be racing Tough Mudder competitively. You're not getting timed. Just go out and have fun and play on some obstacles and get a little dirty.
And we did pretty much what you did. We did the infinite, which is, you do, 8 hours and as many obstacles, as many times around as you can get. We do the 15K first, then we did the 5K right after. And then on the 5K, my buddy Brian, who I do a lot of this stuff with, he rolled his ankle and bad. like bad.
Oh,
And
yikes.
we were like, well, let's go for another 5K. And we got a little bit out there and he's like, no, I can't. He's like, my ankle, there's no way. Cause there was a big part that we had to go through a trail on the backside of the 5K. And he's like, but all the obstacles are in one big group right here.
Mhm.
I'm like, but there's nothing that says we can't just go play.
Right.
We already did the point that, I mean, because you had to do a 15 and a 5, and that's the minimum you had to do to earn the medal and everything else. I'm like, we've done that already. So if your ankle's that messed up, but we don't, let's go jump into Arctic Enema. Let's go, go down the slide in Arctic Enema. Let's go try Funky Monkey again. Let's go do this. And that was the other thing. My arms were already smoked because when I almost made it across was like, I'd already gone through like a 15K and a 5K. So, and it's like, let's go play on them. And that was kind of what I ended up doing on the last one. I'm like, I'm just going to go play. I'm done. I just, this was pretty much besides Dallas in a month. This is it for my season. I'm done.
Right. Right.
So now it's just training for, next year. So now I can hope, back off a little bit on some of the stuff, start doing the more overall training, stop training so hard. I mean, I'm not going to stop training, for the bike and the run and the swim and everything else for triathlons, but I can back up a little bit because I don't have a big triathlon for a long time. So I can start focusing on some of the core stuff, getting more core strength and more, stuff like that. That's going to help me with that stuff anyway,
Mhm.
and that's going to be the big key because, I mean, most people are follow my Facebook. No, Ironman didn't go like it was supposed to, but that was stupid. So, which
Can I ask what happened?
you can, and I'll explain it because I really haven't said anything on Facebook or anything like that. I mean, I'll tell pretty much people if you want to know what happened, listen to this. It is just promise not to laugh at me. It is the stupidest thing, and I'm so mad at myself for it. I sent you the thing, and what I sent you was that was supposed to be the 5
Yeah.
mile, every 5 miles what the breakdown was, and you can see up to like mile 20,
Mhm.
averaging between 17 to 19 miles an hour. So I was cruising. I was doing great.
Yep.
I was on pace. I hit mile 22 was the biggest hill. And when I hit the hill, about a quarter of the way up the hill, I shifted down because I needed to shift because I was too high of a gear and I needed to drop down. When I shifted down, I shifted too late. And I basically just lost all momentum and the bike stopped.
Oh no.
Well, I have clips.
Yeah.
And I didn't get my foot popped quick enough. So I went down and I went down hard. And when I hit, there's a dent on my helmet. I hit my helmet so hard I dented it. I hit my left shoulder. Like I'm pretty sure I don't know if I've gotten it completely back into socket. I'm still having issues with that shoulder now. I hit my left knee. I moved this. I mean, I bent, like twisted the seat at full 90 degrees. I hit hard. The guy behind me is like, I can't believe you actually even stood up after that. And I'm like, no, I'm fine, whatever, push the bike up the hill, which that's why all of a sudden you see like mile 20 to 25, my average speed was like 8. Got the
Wow.
bike up to the top of the hill, was able to get my Allen wrenches out, adjusted as much as I could to try and get the bike back to where it should have been, or so I thought. And then I would go, it just didn't feel right. Nothing felt
Yeah.
right on the bike. I'm like, something's not right. Something's not working. So I had to stop a couple more times and I had my phone with me. So, and anyone who knows an Ironman, I'm not supposed to have my phone with me. They get really mad about that. But I have my phone because it has the GPS. It's what, people
Yeah.
can call me with. It wasn't in my hand. I'm not using it. It was I have a little, I call it my glove box on the bike. It was in the glove box.
Okay.
So Amber was watching and she could see like when I was stopping and she'd see me go. And then all of a sudden I would stop for like 4 or 5 minutes and then go and then stop again. And that was me trying to adjust the bike because I could feel there was a problem. You ride the bike enough, when it's not right. And I just couldn't dial it back to where I needed it to be, no matter how many times I adjusted it. I ended up finishing. I got the full 56 miles, but when I finished, I was 6 minutes. I missed the cut by 6 minutes. So because of all that stopping and messing with the bike. And I figured out what the problem was and why I felt like didn't feel right. When I got home and got the bike up on the rack and I spun the back tire, I bent the brake pad or the brakes on the back.
Oof.
So one of the
Okay.
brake pads on the back was actually pushing up against the tire. So for 30 miles, I was dragging that back tire basically.
Oh, yikes. I'm
So,
so sorry to hear that.
and it's one of those things. It's like, it sucks. It does. But it's something I know to look for next time.
Yeah.
Like I know how to fix it now. There's a lever actually, and I didn't even see it on the brakes until I was playing with it like a couple days afterwards. Because I really, after the race, I pretty much hung the bike up on the rack where it goes and left it there. I'm like, and just didn't really want to touch it, didn't want to think about it. But then when I started looking at it, there's a spot I could have hit a lever on it that actually like opens them up. That would have opened up the brake enough that it would have stopped dragging, and I still would have been able to use it. So, and it was just, it's learning. I learned.
Yeah.
I learned from it. The swim. My biggest fear was the swim. Hit the water, started having problems with my breathing. About halfway through, which I mean, I think I sent you the things for the swim too. You can see what, like
Yeah.
3 minute 3:30 or something like that on the swim. I pulled over to the side, held onto one of the kayaks, did this crazy meditation thing that someone keeps telling me to do.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't be. I got my breathing under control, and you can see after that, I dropped down to like 210, 211. All of a sudden, it was like my swim was just boom on point.
Awesome
So
job.
it comes down to what we've talked about before. It wasn't really my physical wasn't what was keeping me from being able to do those. It's my mental. As soon as I got the breathing under control, mentally calmed myself down, my swim was fine.
Yeah.
And on the bike, if it hadn't been for that fall and hadn't been for me having to stop and keep adjusting the bike, I had it. I mean, I stopped for more than 6 minutes multiple times.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for those stops, I had it. So it's just a matter of, one, I'm pretty sure that lake is just cursed because all 3 triathlons that I failed have been in that same lake.
Oh, yikes.
Oh, so, and everyone's like, maybe you should pick a different one. I'm like, no, that means I need to do that one again.
But I mean, all of it's just awareness.
It is.
Even coming down to the swim, you were more aware this time and you knew what to do. And when you did it, it turned everything around. Now you are more aware of stuff going on with your bike. So, if you feel it, you can go and fix it and keep going. So trial and error, live and learn.
And that's it. And I have this thing. And one of the things that I wanted to say, because a lot of people would get mad at me for this one, the bags. I have my bags from both of Ironmans, and I call them my failure bags. And I know that for a lot of people, that isn't the right thing. But in my brain, it works because to me, I had a goal. I failed hitting that goal. That doesn't mean failure as in a negative, like I failed and I'm a failure. I'm a piece of blah, blah, blah. No. That means I failed at hitting a goal. And that's my reminder of why I'm working so hard to make sure that I hit it next time. And that's the way my brain sees things. It's not like, I don't know. To me, it's not a negative. It's a positive because I'm learning from it. If it was a failure and I'm a failure and I sat there on the couch and picked my nose and ate potato chips because of it, I would see it. But I mean, for me, it's just, I know it has a negative tone to it when you say it that way, but to me, it's just like, I didn't make my goal. This is my reminder that no matter how hard I work, sometimes something's going to happen and I need to learn from it. And like you said, I know how to adjust the bike now. I know one of the things I know I need to do, I need to adjust my clips. And part of the problem I have is the pedals I have, I can't because someone stripped them. So I can't adjust the clip. So I'm either going to have to figure out how to adjust those ones or buy new pedals so that I can get my feet out of the clips, because that was my problem. That's the second time I've actually fallen. And both times I've hit on my left shoulder. And that's why I think I'm having problems with my left shoulder right now, is because both times I've hit that shoulder, and it's just a matter of knowing how to adjust my equipment, how to fix my equipment, knowing what tools I need to have with me, but not so many tools that I'm over. Like last year, I think part of my problem was I had too much. I had probably a bag with like 20 pounds worth of tools just in case. It's like, that's a little much. Now I've got it and it's a bag like yay big, that sits behind my seat that maybe weighs like 2 pounds. It has everything that I should be able to fix. If I blow a tire or whatever, or any problem on the bike, I should be able to fix all of it with that little tool. It's just a matter of getting to know the bike to know what I need to adjust. And the big problem was I didn't know to adjust that back brake and I didn't see it. And I think if I would have thought about it and picked up the bike and spun the tire, I would have seen it. But I just never thought of that never really occurred to me. So, and it's just something, you learn from.
Definitely.
And that's the hard part. It's frustrating though. I will be honest. Like for the first 2 or 3 days, I really was just mad.
But that's out of your control at that point. Like you just haven't had the experience with bike mechanics yet. So, things happened and your bike was messed up. You didn't know how to fix it at that point. What were you supposed to do?
I know, but it's just, it's one of those things that, you still get frustrated when you don't quite hit your goal. So it's just kind of, but then it's like talking to you and like stepping back for a second. It's like, okay, like you just said, this is what happened. There were extenuating circumstances out of my control that I wasn't able to do. And I think, like I said, if I completely considered it a failure and just walked away from it, that would be one thing. But I'm like, okay, here's everything that went right. And that's what I really started helping me like 2 days later was I started, here's everything that went right. Here's everything that went wrong. Now, what can I do to make sure that everything that went wrong doesn't happen again? Or if it does, how can I make that wrong go into the right column?
Yeah. And I mean, that goes down to what we say whenever we talk about ultra planning or whatever else, like try to find everything that possibly could derail you and have a strategy to figure out how to get past it.
Mhm.
You're still newer to the triathlon scene. How are you supposed to know that you need to check, if the brakes are bent after your bike comes to a dead stop on a downhill and you can't get your feet out of your clips? That's a pretty unique situation that isn't going to happen all the time. It's like, so at OCRWC this weekend, do you know the OCR Nation guys, the photographers?
I've seen them, but I don't know them personally, but I've seen a lot in some stuff that they've done. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of their guys was out on course racing the 15K. And one of the final obstacles is Ricochet. And I've talked to the build guys about Ricochet before this and after this. And that they will admit that some of things weren't completely right. There were instances that they wanted to lower the bell, but they couldn't lower the bell because they didn't have long enough straps, blah, blah, blah. There was a bunch of stuff. So with Ricochet, you bounce off the walls to into the rings. So the rings are diagonal and you need the wall to switch directions onto the rings.
Okay.
So you swing out in a diagonal, hit the wall, bounce off the wall to change directions into a zigzag, get to the next wall, and then the ring coming off the second wall is a very far reach. So it's like either you bounce off that wall and can reach for it, or you have to reach for it and you can't bounce off the wall, at least when you're a short person like me. Otherwise, there are some people that actually are long enough to reach and bounce, but that's not me. Then the bell was so incredibly high that you really need a solid momentum swing to reach it, or you needed to really be able to pull up. This was at the end of the 15K. It's the end of all the races, but after 15K, 40 obstacles, your grip is blown out. It's really hard. Not to mention the scaffolding they had. It has these little discs that they were able to screw to hold together. The bell, as you're coming into the zigzag, you are heading towards the scaffolding. The bell is not too far off of the scaffolding. So if you're coming in with a solid momentum, you're most likely going to hit the scaffolding. If you ring the bell, there's a good chance that, you still slam into the scaffolding, whatever else. You're coming in at a diagonal. So the guy from OCR Nation was coming in. He had his band. He went to reach up to hit the bell and he just missed the bell, slammed into the scaffolding. And at the bottom of the scaffolding, there was this like peg that holds part of the scaffolding together. And it went straight into his leg, like to the bone.
Oh.
And just gashed his leg. He couldn't put any weight on it. And he missed the bell. So he couldn't actually go and retry because he needed his legs to bounce off. And like, he's bleeding out. Oh, there was a lot of carnage at Ricochet. I know somebody who tore up their hands so bad they had to close the lane to clean up the blood. But I digress. That's something you can't plan for. How are you supposed to ever logically think through, well, if I wreck my leg so bad to the point that I have a screw into my leg to the bone, how am I supposed to keep my band? What can I do to get through that? That's just something you can't plan for.
No, not at all.
So you sitting here and kicking yourself because you had a freak bike mechanical issue, that's something out of your control.
I know it is. It's just,
Okay. I know you're going to beat yourself up. You're going to be disappointed, but it's fuel for next year.
it is. And that's just what I got. I need to remember that, hey, it didn't quite go the way I planned, did not quite go the way I wanted. But that doesn't mean that, doesn't mean you stop. That means you do exactly like you said. You look at it and say, okay, there was this freak accident. How do I make sure, one, it doesn't happen again, which I know I need to adjust my clip so my feet can come out faster, which they are stiff. They are stiff, and I've just never fixed them because, one, I really like the pedals and they're like $150 to replace. And
Oh, yikes.
I've already spent a lot of money on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
yeah.
it seems like you keep having some issues with the bike.
Well, and it's one of those things because it is used. So, and everything else on it is fine. I mean, I'm like $700 into the bike, but I mean, if I bought it brand new, it would have been a $3,500 bike.
Oh, no thanks.
So I'm still like well below what I would, but I mean, it's replacing the wearable parts, the parts that wear out. I've had to replace the tires and the rims, and had a whole bunch of work done to like the brakes and, the shifters and all that stuff. And so, I mean, it's all stuff that you have to replace eventually anyway. So it's stuff, maintenance, but that was one of the things was the pedals. I like those pedals and they work really well. But like I said, someone stripped the Allen bolts. So the only way there's no way to adjust it without, pretty much replacing the pedals. But I may just have to get new pedals and deal with it. So, and just so I can because I have my exercise bike downstairs, my spin bike, I have pedals on it that have clips, and I can pop right out of those with no problem because I can adjust them.
Yeah.
What I need to do. And I've just been stubborn, and that's my own fault. I kind of knew that there was a problem with them, that they stuck, and I should have known better, but haven't had a problem yet. I've been able to pop out of them when I needed to quick enough. And this time I just didn't. So, and I didn't. And that was kind of, if I had adjusted them. So once again, it's one of those things, live and learn, I can beat myself up for not doing it when I knew I should have, but I thought that they were okay. I thought I could deal with it. But the other thing you run into is once your legs get tired. So it was like one of those things, because my knee was already bothering me, and I decided to keep going anyway. About mile, and it's 56 miles. So I did it 22 and then still had another 30 something to go. About mile 47, because I was using my right leg a lot more than my left, because my left was bothering me, and my right leg just started cramping. Like, I mean, a cramp ran through my right leg from like pretty much hip to ankle. Just yikes. And I was lucky. I unclipped my left leg and was able to lean over, kind of get off the bike, move the leg, kind of move it around in a different, way to make it feel better. But then after that, one of the things I like about my pedals, I was able to flip them over and I can use them as normal pedals without the clips. So for the last 10 miles, I just didn't even use the clips, because I'm like, I need to be able to move if that right leg tries to cramp like that again. And it was like, I've never felt cramp like that. I'm like, oh, that was not good. But, like I said, once you have an injury, you start going a different way. So, and that's one of the other things. I'm not sure. Like I said, I was 6 minutes away from being able to even run. But with the way my knee was feeling afterwards, I'm not sure I would have been able to. But then, of course, stupid me, the next day, because I was frustrated and get out of my own brain, I went and ran 7 miles, but whatever.
But I was going to say, maybe that was a blessing in disguise that your bike decided it was not going to function properly. Because if your knee was bothering you and you still had the run left, that wouldn't have turned out very well for you.
Probably not. And yeah, you know me.
Yeah. At the end of the day, a bike you can fix.
Yeah.
You ultimately came out relatively healthy. So
and the knee feels better.
There's going to be more triathlons in your future.
Yeah, there is. So, and pretty much what I did once I came home and I knew my knee was bad. I, pretty much smothered it in CBD oil or CBD lotion, which is what I do, and put some, a wrap on it. And pretty much by Tuesday, I wasn't limping. So, and then I've done since Tuesday, like 45 miles running, but,
that's so much.
Part of that was, I mean, I did do the Tough Mudder Infinity. I mean, that was
right.
So, I mean, there was, I think almost 18 miles there. So the rest of it's just been, but that's part of my problem I run into when I'm frustrated. How I get out of my brain is running. That's my meditation per se, besides when I actually sit down and meditate, like someone keeps telling me I need to, but
We need to find you other coping strategies.
probably. But yeah,
Probably.
one main coping strategy when I'm frustrated, when I'm annoyed, whatever, I go, and I mean, most time it's treadmill. I'll just, if I'm not outside, I'll go outside sometimes, but lately it's been pretty much I go and put on whatever show I want to watch, put it on my iPad, stuff it on the treadmill, and just turn it on and go. Crank it up to 6.5 and just go for like an hour.
Mm. Yeah, we need to change some things about your training.
So, well, and that's the one thing I'm like, for me in my brain, I'm thinking now, okay, pretty much besides Dallas, which I'm supposed to do. I was going to do the ultra in Dallas, but my one partner that I was supposed to do the ultra with has backed out because
Mhm.
he has an ankle injury, and I think he's just going to do the beast. So I may back, and I'm signed up for the beast, and I've never upgraded to the ultra. So I'm thinking, I mean, with everything else that's happened to me over this year, body wise, everything else, I think it might be a better choice for me to do the beast and not the ultra, and then start focusing over the winter of, like I was saying before, more core, more, muscle
Yeah.
along with the cardio, which is what I was supposed to be doing this whole year. But then I got focused on the triathlons and focused on the swim, bike, and run, and not focusing on everything else that goes with it, which even though in my brain, I know as well as you're going to tell me, if I build the core, I do build the muscle, it's going to help with the other ones as well.
100%. It's all injury prevention. You have to start with the injury prevention baseline, and then everything you do from there is going to continue to prevent injuries, but also strengthen the body overall.
Yeah. And I mean, if I'm still going to do OCR, because that's one of the other problems I ran into, it's like I noticed like Funky Monkey when I was doing that at Tough Mudder, and I said I almost made it. If this was last year, before I was focusing so hard on the Ironmans and everything else, I would have had the grip strength and I would have had everything else to totally do it with no problem.
Yeah.
I would have been totally fine. I would have had it. But this year, I mean, I don't have the grip strength that I've had in the past. And part of that's been because I focused so hard on a different area. And that's one reason why I say I think I need to start working more on the lifting, building the muscle, and the injury prevention. I mean, I'm not getting any younger. Takes me a lot longer to come back from an injury. So if I can prevent them, that's the best thing ever. I mean, as a safety guy, I should be all about prevention, but it's like I tell everyone,
Do as I say, not as I do.
pretty much like I tell everyone, those who can do, those who can't teach. So that's why I teach safety. So
Oh boy.
not always that good at it.
So when you go into your season, or like now that you're approaching the off season, are you going to sit down and actually lay out your full season for next year?
I haven't in the past, but this year I think I need to. Part of the problem I'm gonna run into though is a lot of it really depends on if the move happens or not. I mean, right now I'm planning everything as if the move is happening. So, and then I will be in, Texas by March.
Yeah, you'll be at like all of the Battle of the Lions events. You'll be at all the Savages.
And that's what I kind of look at it, because I think it's going to end up being that my schedule is going to open up and become a lot more races.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you're going to be back in the OCR scene completely. And you're like, well, I have to go to OCRWC now.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm definitely. So that's what I've looked at too. And I mean, I've already looked like, if I'm in Texas, I mean, like Ironman, there's 4 of them in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Savage, all these races that we don't see up here in the Pacific Northwest. And that's why everyone always asks, like, why do you do so hard and push so hard for like 4 months? I'm like, because that's my entire season.
Yeah.
It's like when I finished the Ironman last weekend, there's not another triathlon in Washington until June.
Mm-hmm.
So you have June, July, August, and September. And after pretty much Ironman, like, the middle of September, that's the last triathlon in Washington. There's not another one. You can't find another one in Washington until June.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's just like, there's a reason why, like, you see a lot of Pacific Northwest racers, we push so hard for like 4 months, and it's race after race after race, and we're just jamming them all in there because we have pretty much a window of like, for me, I get March, but that's because I leave every year. I travel. I go to, it's been Vegas, or like this year it was San Antonio. That's how I get my first race in March. The next one we get is, May, we can go to, Montana. But other than that, if you're doing OCRs, you're traveling all year long, or the ones that are here, you get the small ones here from pretty much June to August.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, Spartans here in September. And then we're done, you know. And that's where we push, why a lot of us push so hard for like, but then we come out of it. Like for me, I came out of it like, you know, today after Tough Mudder yesterday and everything. And yesterday was just volunteering. I didn't actually race, but the day before I did, and my body's wrecked. You know, my left shoulder is, something's not right. You know, so I've got to try and figure out if I'm going to be able to work that out and figure out, you know, what's going on with that. My left knee it's better. It's doing good, but there's still a twinge every once in a while. So it's not something I want to push too hard right now, you know, and that's kind of thing. So then it's like, you know, usually you come out of September and your body's so wrecked that you want to like relax for at least a month or two. But then the problem is you have to try and make sure that, and that's what I'm trying to make sure I do, is I don't relax too far. And that's where I think, you know, I've made mistakes in the past, is where all of a sudden, oh, race season's over, time to sit on the couch and eat some potato chips and ding dongs, you know, and then all of a sudden race season comes back around and I'm all roly poly and can't freaking do anything because I've become fat again. So, and that's kind of the thing. I've got to make sure that I'm still doing the off season. I'm still training and being ready for it. It's just different training because most time we can't go outside, or we can, but you're going to go outside and play in the rain and snow and everything else. That's kind of why I built the gym in the garage.
So that downtime after your season, it's very important, but like coming off of a major race, you still need to like deload and really recover and bring yourself down instead of just go straight into an off season. And I mean, I know I've seen with clients that they finish the Killington Ultra and they're like, okay, well, finish the Killington Ultra, I'm good to go. I'm like, no, I'm going to program out at least 1 week of recovery for you, because if you don't recover properly, you're going to go into this off season with a lot of issues, and then you're not going to focus on correcting these, and then you're going to start training again for whatever comes next, and there's going to be escalating problems throughout, and it's all because, you know, you did something at the big race and you just didn't know how to come down from it.
Yeah.
But I had a conversation with a client today, and I've had this conversation with her numerous times this year. I asked my clients to start the season, okay, what are your races? Can you lay out your races for me? ABC races. When are they? What are your goals for them? I need to know them in advance so we can plan out what we're going to do, when we're going to do it. She told me 2 weeks before Killington, she was going to run Killington. She also at that time told me she was going to run the Jersey Trifecta weekend. And I'm like, we haven't been training for back-to-back days on a race weekend.
Yeah.
So now we have to like kick it into gear for that. And she's like, well, can I just do back-to-back days at Killington to train for it? I'm like, no, because Killington is going to completely wreck you. And then you're going to try and go back out for day 2 and you're going to injure yourself.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have so much damage that it's going to set you back so much greater. And then you have to turn around and go run Jersey. And then she's like, okay, well, after Jersey, I have an ultra 2-3 weeks later. I'm like, okay, what is your goal for this ultra? Because right now we haven't been training you for an ultra. Oh, well, you know, I'd really like to do 100K. I'm like, yeah, we're not there yet. We're not training you for that right now. Like, I needed to know this months ago.
Yeah.
So we can like be preparing you for this. And then she's like, okay, awesome. Well, we'll just see. And like, I can run them 2 days on the weekends. That's fine. And then we were talking today and she's like, yeah, so I have Fenway 2 weeks after the ultra. And then I have the Disney Marathon in January. So I'll probably just take a break after Fenway for a couple of weeks to recover. And then I'll run the Disney Marathon in January. I'm like, what are you talking about? You need marathon training. You're coming from trails to a road race for a marathon. You can't be taking 2-3 weeks off with less than 6 weeks before a marathon.
No.
We're going to be tapering you for at least 2 weeks. That's going to give you only 4 weeks. Like, so then we have to look at Fenway. One, why are you running Fenway? Oh, well, because we live in Boston. It's our home course. It's the first race I ever ran. I love Fenway. I'm like, I love Fenway too. But what is your goal for Fenway? Well, I'm just, you know, I usually get like 2-3 laps on the weekend. I said, you're going to need to do at least probably like 3 laps on Saturday, 1 to 2 laps on Sunday. Like, because we're going to be trying to bring you down from an ultra to then put you right back into a marathon training. It's so much on the body. It's like, I feel blindsided because when I'm sitting here saying, what's your next race? What's your next race? What's your next race? She's giving it to me on the fly and not letting us actually program it out and not setting specific purposes. It's like, what do you want to do with this race? What do you want to do with this race? What do we want to do with this race? How are we going to train for it? And what is race C going to do to help with race A? There comes a time that it's like, if your A race is the Disney Marathon, running a trail ultra for 24 to 30 hours is not necessarily going to help you. Yeah, it's going to be great base building, but you're not going to fuel the same way for an ultra that you would for a marathon. You're not getting the same pavement pounding that you would for a marathon that you're getting at the, as the ultra. And then, you're just not getting the same kind of strategizing on an ultra that you need for a marathon. You can be very slow and just, have fun, take your time on the ultra. You're in a marathon. You just want to go point A to point B, be done with it. So we need to really talk about how these races are fitting into our schedules. I had the conversation with, I think, Sid, David, one of them, again, because they were the build guys at OCRWC. They had the canceled race in Oklahoma City. And I was like joking around with them, not letting them forget that they canceled this race on me 2 days before. And I'm like, yeah, so you guys canceled that race. I guess I have to plan for another one. They're like, well, just come out to Dallas in 2 weeks. I'm like, yeah, but guys, if I'm going to run races that are mandatory obstacle completion and very grip heavy, I want to have them as a build up to OCRWC.
Mm-hmm.
I'm now recovering from OCRWC. I love the races that are still going on, but I don't need them to work towards my A race. My A race was at OCRWC. At this point, I don't need that same kind of extreme grip intensive work for whatever I decide to do for the rest of my season, which is most likely, as long as I can afford a plane ticket, it's going to be Fenway. And then I'm probably going to run the Carolina Ultra. So I want to ramp up my mileage right now. I don't need to really work on my obstacle game because Spartan obstacles aren't really much of anything. So I'm going to prioritize my ultra running, my fueling strategies, my race planning, and I'm just going to go and I'm on a crush Carolina Ultra. I don't need to go down to Dallas and run some crazy rigs and then go into my off season and, lose a little bit of muscle memory, train and whatever else to come back and be like, hey, I haven't seen these in forever. I saw them last year, but there was no reason to see them this year when it wasn't building into what I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of these race brands still aren't understanding is like, what is the purpose of having this race here? Like, I think we talked about it last time, like Spartan, they had set up their hierarchy. You go sprint to super to beast. So typically you want somebody to run a sprint before you run a super, run the super before you run the beast before you run the ultra. And you want them to build into that. So we had said, the New England Sprint and Super is a joke race for anybody who is preparing for Killington, because that's not building you up to Killington. It's like, two extremes. And in no way is one going to help with the other. So with a race season, if you have OCRWC in September, you should have all of the harder mandatory obstacle completion races that are going to get you to your OCRWC peak leading up to it. So I'm going to put a race in April. I'm going to put a race in May. I'm going to put a race in June, 1 to 2 in July, 1 to 2 in August, and then I'm going to taper and I'm going to go run OCRWC. That's how I want my race schedule to look like. That's how I tell race directors my race schedule is going to look like. That's what makes the most sense to me. We're building a race season. So with clients and everything else, I want them to look at that A race and think, this is your end game on the year. This is the big one you want to do. yeah, you can still have some fun runs. You can go throw in a tough mudder if, all of the work is out of the way and you just want to go have fun and do like a victory lap. But think build to the A race.
Mhm.
And after your A race, you want to recover and give enough time between your downtime, your recovery, to then start building back up to get your season rolling again. This year, I didn't have the same kind of training I did leading up to OCRWC. My running, my climbing was absolutely terrible. My obstacle game, I felt like it could have been way stronger. And it's just, I didn't have the means to train as well coming out of New Zealand. I wasn't working at the gym I used to work at. I wasn't at the obstacle gym. I was still trying to figure out where I was going to set up my equipment, whatever else. So I just didn't do as much obstacle training as I would have liked to. My strength training wasn't where I wanted it to be. I'm shocked I kept my band on all 3 races because it could have been much stronger. But I had the muscle memory from previous year's builds. So now I want to take the base that I have now, go recover a little bit, and then build up even greater. Because I know next year they're going to take that bar that they set this year where everybody's like, this is so tough. And they're going to be like, oh, we're going to push it a little bit higher.
This is what it should be.
Exactly. So I again plead to all the race directors, please, please, please set up your schedule so we can build to OCRWC. Let's build this like a sport with a legitimate schedule and not just have a race here and there because you have nothing going on that weekend.
Yeah. And that's one of the things. And I'll be honest. I mean, I am, you know me, we've been talking quite a bit. That is pretty much my issue is, hey, yeah, this sounds fun. Let's go do it. And a lot
I
of
know.
people,
And that's why I brought it up today as well, because we've already kind of been hinting towards it.
Mhm.
And like for you, now that you've attempted these triathlons and we've talked about it for months, how we can really train smarter, not harder.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, how can we set up your schedule to build to your next A race? You don't always need to go race on the weekends.
No.
If you do want to go race on a weekend, how does that race fit into that next big race for you? And what is the A race?
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, and that's my biggest problem. A lot of times I just randomly throw and decide things. Like I did Portland Sprint, which I wasn't supposed to, but I did Portland Sprint the day before the Ironman. So, which wasn't a great choice, but one Don needed me. He needed help. So, and it was one of those, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't do almost some of the obstacles. I'm like, I'm just here to help you get this adaptive athlete through and to get Nicole through. Other than that, that's the only reason I'm here. It's not, I'm not here to compete. I'm just here to help Nicole. And but it was one of those, I knew he needed the help and I'm like, I can't leave him hanging. So I went and walked that one, which wasn't a great choice. Honestly, doing Seattle and Hawaii back to back, a month before Ironman, still once again, probably a great choice. And that's probably the thing, like you're talking about. My schedule for the year was not set right. My schedule was just pretty much me doing what I normally do. Because of that 4-month window, I'm just jumping into every race I can get into because it sounds fun. I did Sisu, I did Ragnar, I just jumped into every race I could, but none of they were all so different. Half the triathlons I did were last minute, like, hey, I need another one because before Ironman, which do they help get me towards Ironman? Sure. But if I had done the training, which don't get me wrong, I do honestly think if I hadn't wrecked the bike, I could have finished that Ironman. I could have got it in time. But doing what I did with just randomly doing, races on the weekend, does that really help me? It helps me deal with the anxiety. Yes. The anxiety of going into the swim, the anxiety of that. But what really helps me is, like we've talked about before, is the scheduled training, doing this training correctly, scheduling, like you said, for the races. Should I have done another triathlon, only 2 weeks? 2 weeks before the Ironman? Probably not. They probably shouldn't have done one that's so close. I should have been, like tapering at that point, not doing another triathlon. So there's a lot of things there where, my planning is not the best. And we've talked about this, not the best at all. So that's one thing I've really got to look forward into next year is And I think that's one of the reasons why I've kind of, didn't have the success this year that I had like the year before, because 2020, there were no races.
Mhm.
I just ran and I did my thing. I ran, did my thing, did battle miles, did a bunch of stuff where I was lifting heavy things, doing running with a vest, doing other things, plus running, and mixed around my training a lot. So once all of a sudden that, races came along, I had built up some of that strength. I had built up some of that grip strength by doing other things. And this year I really didn't. It was no real scheduled training, no real rhyme or reason to what I was doing. I was just randomly going swimming, deciding to go on a bike ride today, go for a run today, do this, do that. And then basically, a workout here and there, but not really following a scheduled plan. I have one downstairs that I'm supposed to be following, but and I have it, and I'll be honest, I'll get into it like 2 or 3 days, and then my brain goes, woo, I've got a race coming up. I need to get ready for this. And that's what I kept thinking. And right now, with nothing really besides, I've got, like I said, Dallas in October 22nd, somewhere around there, towards the end of October. And the only other thing is I got to decide if I want to do my birthday run this year or not. So, which is just a stupid idea every time. So,
So don't do it.
I don't know. I might not. It's only been a 2-year like tradition now. So, because the birthday run, you know what it is, right? I run my
Yeah. You run your age.
which that's going to be 45 miles. So in the middle of the
You don't need to do that.
So, but that's it. And that's kind of the thing is I think that's part of my problem has been I just randomly throw random challenges at myself because there's nothing else, I'm not thinking of anything else and there's no structure to it. So, and that's something like me and Brian were talking about too, because me and you have talked about this. I'm not getting the results I want because there's no structure to what I'm doing at the moment. I'm just kind of doing what I think is best. Oh, this will help me, become better. If I just go ride the bike a bunch, it's going to help me become better. But if I went and lifted weights, worked on my core, did all that kind of stuff, it would also help on the bike. It's not just the riding the bike. It's not just the running. It's not just the swimming. There's so much like injury prevention and other parts of my body I need to be working to make sure that all that stuff works right.
Ultimately, it comes down to planning.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you say it at work all the time, like set goals, set objectives, and then you work back from there. Okay, this is the goal. What steps do we need to accomplish to get to this goal? Okay, here are, smaller, some more mid-range goals. Okay, to hit these mid-range goals, what do we have to do? And that's where, I talk to a client and it's always baffling to me when people come into me and they're like, hey, I just need a program to train for the race. And I'm like, okay, well, when is your race? And I give them a program. And then I hear like 3 months later, as they're a week, 2 weeks out from their race, they're still doing the max strength program I gave to them. And I'm like, no, that was the program for that month, that time of the year. Once you got into racing, your focus needed to change. You needed to be doing power, agility, speed, quickness the month before the race. And then the month of the race, you needed to add in some more obstacle specificity. There is a set goal for each training phase to get you to race ready. You're not going to get race ready by just picking up and putting down heavy weights.
No.
You need to think smarter. You want to train for a specific purpose and know that what you do now is going to affect what you can do 3 months from now. The strength you build now, it might diminish slightly if you go into a power phase or obstacle specificity or whatever else. But because you're putting on more strength right now, strength with velocity is going to equal more power. So you can afford a little loss in strength because that's just natural. The higher you come in with strength threshold, the stronger you're going to be going into whatever race it is. Then you put on a little bit of speed, bam, you got power, you go into the race, you're much stronger, you're faster, you're more powerful, everything's working better. But if you're still only working strength when you should have been working strength 3, 4, 5 months ago, you're kind of screwing yourself over. So let's start thinking about training as legitimate sport training. You're not having your linebackers max squatting in season.
No.
They're going to pull back on that weight. They're going to change up their training programs to be more sport specific and to accompany what they need to be able to do out on their fields. That's how we should be thinking in obstacle course racing and triathlon training and any kind of anything we do. We want to accompany our sport. So we got to train smarter, race with set plans, set goals, and train with a purpose. And that's why there are plenty of coaches in this industry now. Talk to them.
I talk to you. Oh,
I know. You talk to me. Sometimes you listen. Sometimes you don't.
I know, and that's my problem. and it's one of those things, like you even pointed out, like in my job, my whole job is about talking about being safe and how you have to plan to be safe and set a plan. And if something changes, you change that plan. And then when you're in the middle of the job, you're doing different things with the planning than when before you started. And I'm like, it all freaking makes sense for the training too. This is what I preach every day when I'm talking about things of how to deal with it, how to deal with changes, how to deal with this, how to deal with when you're in this area doing this. And I'm like, yeah, it's the exact same for training. My problem is, I run into one of those things where I'm like, I think I know what I should do. And then I just start doing it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, wait, that probably wasn't the right thing to do.
I mean,
that's why I talk to you.
As humans, we're all lazy. We're inherently lazy. And, we're always looking for the shortcuts. We always want to conserve as much energy as we can. We want to make things less difficult. We want to stay in our comfort zones, and making a plan forces you to get outside of your comfort zone, because you're like, okay, I know this is what I need to do. This is what I haven't been doing. This isn't comfortable for me anymore, but you got to do it.
And it's why we plateau, why we hit a certain
Exactly.
people always talk about, like, I've been working out so much, but I'm stuck on this plateau. It's like, because you're doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah. My client today, right after she's telling me she wants to run 100K and then rest and then go run the Disney Marathon, she's like, do you think I can run OCRWC next year? And I said, honestly, right now, no, not with where you're at and where your motivation level is at. We need to put in a significant amount of work for you to be able to go and survive at OCRWC, because there are so many people that go into OCRWC so unprepared, and they go in with this mentality of, oh, well, I'm going to lose my band anyways. So they drop their band quick. They maybe try an obstacle once or twice, and then they move along. And that's why obstacle completion percentages are so low. It's not because the training and the resources aren't out there. It's because people don't want to get outside of their comfort zone. They don't want to go seek out the races that are really going to challenge them, give them something new, and start training in ways that is really going to help them. My client, she doesn't really dedicate a lot of time in our one-on-one sessions to strict training. She likes to talk. It's a therapy session for her. And we don't get as much work done as your average person would get done in an hour. And I ask her to do things on her own. And there's this, that, and every excuse you can think of why things aren't getting done. She plateaus a lot. So if she comes to me and says, do you think I can run OCRWC? I'm going to be honest and say, you need to get your butt in gear if you want to run OCRWC. Because if I am sending an athlete to OCRWC, I'm not wanting to send an athlete who is going to deliberately give up their band the first time they face a challenge. Yeah. The purpose of the sport is to overcome challenges, face your fears, and do ridiculously hard things and beat them. So I want you fighting for your band. But if you're struggling to swing across a monkey bar, I'm not going to send you to OCRWC. It's a great experience. Go try out the 5K. I encourage you. Go volunteer. Go experience the entire weekend. But I want my athletes to train really hard for the races they're going to run, so they come in confident and can actually complete the tasks at hand. Yeah. And I'd really like to see the completion percentages much higher at OCRWC And the difficulty level is not the issue, because that difficulty level was perfect this year. And so many people could have, should have kept their band. It was all confidence for a good portion of people. I'm not going to say everybody, but
Well,
let's train harder and become more confident.
The problem we have right now, a lot of times with our society, is if something's too difficult, the mindset isn't to train harder, it's that they need to make it easier for me. And that's not the way it should be. It's one of those things, like a lot of people, and this is one thing that I've tried to point out to people, you know, when they talk about, like, you know, how I've lost all the weight before, you know, the last couple of years and done all this stuff, and I'm doing so much more. I'm like, actually, if you go back and look at my Facebook, I was doing the exact same amount of races I am now.
Mm-hmm.
The only difference was I wasn't doing anything between them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a lot of people make the mistake. They're like, oh, you're doing all these races. It's so amazing. It's so inspiration. I'm like, but I'm 300 pounds because I'm not doing anything between the races. I go out and I have the endurance. I did a marathon at 300 pounds. Took me 9.5 hours, but I had the endurance to just keep moving. Is that inspirational? In a sense, sometimes, yes. But what was really inspirational was 2 years later when I did the same marathon in, 5.5, or when I did a marathon in 4 hours and 39 minutes after doing one in 9.5, because I trained in between the races. And that's where a lot of people miss it. And that's one of my problems I'm having now is when I lost all the weight, I did a lot of cardio. I was running every day, doing a lot of cardio, pushing myself, everything else. But would that have worked at OCR Worlds? No, because I had no upper body. The first time I did a Spartan when I was 180 pounds, I could barely lift the Atlas ball, which to me was, I'm like, whoa, normally I could do this with no problem, lift it up, walk with it, not even like break a sweat or have a heavy breathing. But when I lost all the weight, I lost a lot of the muscle to go with it because I went strict cardio. And that's one of the things for me is it's one of those, I have a bad habit of once I get my mind on something, this is what I want to do. I train specifically for that in the way, like I said, an unorganized way that makes sense in my brain, but really is not helpful in any way. I had my diet down and that's what saved me. I had the diet and I ran a lot. So I just had the cardio and the diet. But then when it came to anything else, I had no muscle besides my legs because I was running constantly. I had the speed down. I got down to my best. I was running 26, 27-minute 5Ks. And for me, that's amazing. But now it's like all of a sudden I'm a little bigger now. I've got some more muscle, so I can do the hanging obstacles again. I still need to work on my grip strength. It's not where it should be. But part of that's because I pushed so hard this year. Like my left shoulder it's not good. I need to figure out what's going on with that shoulder and get it working again, and figure out, what's going on, and part of that's going to come with, hopefully over the, figuring out what I did to it and having a planned training program, a plan to get me to where I need to be. Like I said, my next race is Dallas. After Dallas, I'm probably not doing anything till maybe March. And after that, it really is going to depend on where I am. And I'm still not sure. I'm almost thinking next year should probably, I don't know, a little less of a year that I did this year, just to give my body what I gave it in 2020, where it wasn't push, jump, race after race after race. It was just a lot of cardio and doing a lot of my own type of training, but have a few races in between. Like I'm already signed up for Sisu next year, which is the 24-hour race, and I'm already signed up for that because, well, Sisu is just so much fun, but that's right now, that's my A race. That's the only race that I'm definitely doing next year. More than likely, I'm probably do Ragnar, and I'm definitely going to want to do more triathlons. I just don't know which ones yet. A lot of that depends on where I'm at. So, if I'm in Texas, I may fly back up here to beat Lake Wilderness just because that stupid Ironman drives me nuts. Or I may do Salem, which is in July. But most likely, if I'm doing an Ironman, it's going to be July or August, September, somewhere in there. So it's a matter of really, I think, stepping back from some of the OCR enough to give my body to get me into the condition to where I'm not. And I've said this before, even when I was big, I want to stop completing races. I want to start competing races.
So you want quality of racing, not quantity.
Yes. And that's where my brain is now. And I think the Ironman, having that DNF again, kind of changed my brain on that, where I have been for years, even like I said, 300 pounds. I did what, 3 trifectas every year for like 3 years at 300 pounds.
Mhm.
You know, was I doing a lot of burpees? Sure. Was I failing a lot of obstacles I shouldn't have been? Yeah. You know, the last one I did at 300 pounds, I dislocated my shoulder 4 times in the race
Oh,
because I
yikes.
couldn't hold my own weight because I was so big. My left shoulder would just dislocate every time I put weight on it, you know, and that's kind of one of those things. Was I completing them? Yes. Was I competing? No. And that's what I think I want to do. Like you said, I want to be more quality and less quantity. And I think
So,
that's what my next year needs to be.
so already listening to it, I know you just said that your 24-hour race is an A race. If you are running an Ironman in July, August, it sounds like this 24-hour race, which it's always the same weekend as Indian Mud Run. So that's in June. That's most likely should be a B race for you, where it can give you race planning strategies for during your Ironman. You know, it can give you some good opportunities to test out fueling, test out your running gear, whatever else, because an Ironman, you could anticipate going, you know, into the night and whatever else, depending on the distance. So it's going to give you that nighttime running experience. It's going to give you the grit and the mental fortitude for, you know, 24-hour racing if you need to.
Yeah.
So you can use it as a B race, and that can build you into your triathlons, your Ironmans, whatever else.
Yeah. And like I said, really the only reason why I say like A race at the moment, because right now that is literally the only one that is definitely on my schedule.
Right.
You know, there's no other right now. I mean, will I do some of the Spartans? Maybe. But I mean, it's kind of one of those things. I mean, I probably should. I'm an ambassador and whatever, but
You're sounding like literally every person now. Should I? Yeah, I probably should.
I probably
You know,
should.
they
But it's
paid
one
for
of
my
those.
races, but
Yeah. And it's kind of one of those. I mean, I might do a couple, but I don't think it's going to be one of those. Like, it's not going to become my focus. My focus is more on the triathlons and some of those other ones. I want it more of the grip heavy push, you know, push my body obstacles. Can I lift heavy shit? Yes, I can. And right now in Spartan, that's one of the best things that, you know, some of the Atlas ball, some of the lifting heavy shit, I can do that. But that to me, where the real competition to me comes in is going to be the hanging obstacles. Like, you know, not being able to, I should have been able to do Funky Monkey at Tough Mudder. That's not a very technical, not a very hard hanging obstacle. It's pretty much monkey bars with a couple spinning wheels. I should have been able to get through that. And I failed. You know, I dropped into the water because I lost my momentum, because I stopped on one of the swings when I shouldn't have. But if I'd trained more for stuff like that, I would have had the grip strength to get myself going again. And that's where I need to work on, is that grip strength, you know, because that's where looking at a lot of the other OCRs that we don't get up here, that I don't get a train on, but a lot of those are more grip heavy. And if I want to do and compete and keep my band at any of those, when I, you know, the ones where it's, you know, completion, I need to have that grip, because if I don't have the grip, it doesn't matter how many times I try those.
So this is where I preface and say, I love how everybody always just brushes it off and says it's grip strength, it's grip, it's grip, it's grip. Hanging obstacles isn't always just grip.
No.
It's momentum, swinging. So core stability, shoulder mobility, it is body awareness. It's all just physics and kinesiology. But hanging obstacles doesn't necessarily mean you need more grip strength. It means that you need to improve your shoulder mobility to lessen how much you're gripping, to allow your hips to do the work so your hands don't have to.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. I mean, I don't do a lot. I mean, the only grip ones I really do and like hanging obstacles are Spartans, where you're doing monkey bars, which, I mean, even at 300 pounds, I could still do the monkey bars.
Yep.
You know, a lot of that's just being able to reach, and I have a short arm, so I've learned how to like hop, you know, a little farther to get the other ones. So, you know, that beater, and a couple other ones. But other than that, there's not really many hanging obstacles. I mean, even bender, it's pretty much you just have to use your arms for a couple minutes and then swing your legs up.
Yeah.
No. And I mean, there's not a whole lot of swinging and hanging obstacles that happen in that. And then, like I said, I'm looking at some of the other ones, Savage, Epic, some of those other ones. There's a lot of hanging obstacles. And without knowing how to do hanging obstacles that well, because like I said, monkey bars, I can muscle my way through the monkey bars.
So let's get you to other obstacle course races.
I know that's
Let's
my plan.
set a plan and let's get you out to run a couple of them.
That's what I want to
Really
do.
test your abilities on innovative obstacles that you've never seen before. And then from there, you can revise your plan so you know what more you need to do to get to an even bigger goal.
Mhm.
Because step one is just going out and trying, see how you're at. I trained a client today. He is the person who runs the Dropkick Murphys charity. So I told him I would come help out and, help him get in shape. I'm going to help with a couple charity things. And we were talking and he's like, Megan, I just want to test out some things. I want an orientation today. I don't want to go hard. I put him into a trap bar. I started him with 50s on the sides. Did it no problem. I kept putting weight on. He eventually got to 215. Looking great. He was feeling strong. He was repping them out. And he's like, this is awesome. It feels great. So then I go on and I show him how to do assisted pull-ups. And he's like, you're just throwing me into everything. Wow. Like, yeah, there is no easing you in for anything. I'm like, no, it's not that. I want to see how your body responds to the demands, because everything we're doing is functional. Obstacle course racing is functional. We've been doing it since we were little kids. We just have to remind our body that it can do this.
Yeah.
So step one for me as a coach is I want to see how your body responds to these stimuli. So then from there, we can make little tweaks so it starts to click more and more and more. So let's get you out, get on some new obstacles, see where your body is clicking and see what more we can do. So then it really resonates.
And that's, yeah. I mean, that sounds amazing. And that's one of the big things is just getting there and figuring out what I can do, and I think that's one of the biggest problems is, not knowing where the starting point is. Cause like I said, I mean, it's, the few hanging obstacles I've had to do, because up here we get Spartan and we get Tough Mudder. That's it. And we don't get any of the others. So it's like trying to get, and that's one of the reasons that I'm looking forward to moving farther east is getting the chance to try some of those other ones and get out there and see what I can do. Because I have no idea what I can do on those ones. I know what I can do on Spartan because I've done over 60 of them.
Mm-hmm.
And for the past, 3 years, it's been the same obstacles. So
Yep.
I know what I can do on all those,
Yep.
Which nothing against Spartan's a great beginner race. And I'll be honest, and a lot of people don't see it that way, but it is, from a lot of stuff I've seen from some of the others, it's a great beginner race. It is not the penultimate. I mean, the penultimate, I think, is some of these other ones, OCR Worlds, stuff like that. Those are the ones you train. Spartan's what you do to practice to build your way up to OCR Worlds.
But not even, because Spartan's not going to give you the mandatory completion practice. It's not going to give you new innovation. It's not going to give you new grip holds. It's not going to give you lashaying or any of the other obstacles you'll ever see. But it can at least give you the basics in terms of heavy carrying, lock off, swinging, whatever else.
And I think it gets you into, the idea of, doing, obstacle course races, but that's it. It's just the idea of it.
Yeah, it sparks muscle memory. That's it.
And that's it. So it'll get you into it. It might be something as a good intro, and it's something that's still fun. I enjoy it to go hang out with friends and see friends. That part I still enjoy, but it's gotten to a point now where, as far as, besides competing, if I get into like competing at it, other than that, it's like, and not to sound bad, I'm in like the toughest age group. I swear to God, all the good ones are at 40 to 49, but
yes.
That is like, yeah, you got Killian, you got so many people in my age group. So there's no way I'm competing there. But, it's, which, not to sound bad, I mean, I guess maybe if I trained hard enough, I might be able to get to that point, but it's one of those that, that's not what I'm looking for. I want to have fun, but I also want to push myself. And I've gotten to a point that I think to push myself, I need to try some of those other ones. I need to try the hanging obstacles. I need to do that more. So it's just, and that's one thing to look at for, the next year, get done. I've just come off a couple hard weekends. I still need to like wean myself down, get down to a point, take a couple weeks to kind of, whatever, some downtime, but my kind of downtime. And then, in October, a month from now, I've got Dallas. I'm just going to, like I think it said, I think I'm just going to do the beast because I think that's what my body needs right now, just to get that one done. That'll give me my 3 trifectas. And then after that, it's pretty much, I don't have anything on the schedule probably until, and honestly, March is just because that's usually when I go either to San Antonio or Vegas and do a Spartan. But at this point, I'm not even sure I want to do those ones. It may be that this year I don't do a race until later in the year.
Hey, that's when Battle of the Lions rescheduled that Oklahoma City race.
What, till March?
Yeah.
And we might have to go to Oklahoma. Who knows? A lot of, like I said, a lot of this comes down to depending on where I'm at in, if everything goes the way it's supposed to and the way we planned it, I'll be buying a house and moving in March. So
Also think about it. The final fit challenge is in April. So if you wanted a reason to travel and come out east, it's the final fit challenge, and they're doing a 24-hour race.
which one's that one?
Rob McCoy's race in Rhode Island.
That might be interesting. My goal is to one day do, a race in all 50 states, and it's really earn a medal. It could be as simple as a 5K at this point in all 50 states, but just something in all 50 states. It would be nice to do an OCR, but it's really tough to find OCRs in like some of those random weird states in the middle because nobody wants to go there for any reason. So,
well, that's how I feel about Oklahoma, but here we are.
But here we are, yes. So, well, I mean, if they put a good race there, I'll go. But I mean, it's like,
they have to hold the race first.
Yeah, they do. So
I'm never going to let them live that down. I think I mentioned that every single time I talk to them this weekend. Like, hey, yeah, so about that Oklahoma City race you canceled 2 days beforehand, and it was my birthday. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yikes. Well, hopefully it actually happens. So
I know. Hopefully.
All right. But we should cut this off. We've been going.
Oh, we've been talking forever.
We have been, but I always love talking to you because we can talk about it and it's like 2 old friends talking. I mean, you could pretty much like tell me what I'm doing is completely stupid and it doesn't bother me because you do it in a way that makes me be like, yeah, you're right.
But that's how I want to talk to everybody when it comes to this sport. Yeah. Literally at OCRWC this weekend, I was running and I was like leapfrogging with one of my friends throughout the course. And we got to over under, and it's this stupid obstacle where you start on top of it and then it like has these pegs that you have, it's just a V or a whatever.
Yeah.
That you have to come underneath and get across to the other side, and then you have to flip yourself back on top to finish out. And she was having a lot of trouble, and she struggled the 3K, she struggled on the 15K, came up on the 15K, and I'm like, hey, everything okay? I'm like, do you want me to watch you do it, to just kind of coach you through? And she's like, no, go ahead. So I went and I did, and as I'm coming back around, I'm literally calling out what I'm doing as I'm doing it for her. And I said, hey, like, try this. Like, and she's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like, this is so great. And it's like, she came and caught me on the mountain. She's like, honestly, I would have been stuck there all day. You did not have to help me. You did not have to tell me some hacks to get through that. Like, I'm your competition. We're in the same age group. She's like, you are a lifesaver right now. Why would you do that? And I said, honestly, I'm just out here having a good time. I would much rather see everybody succeed, get over new obstacles they haven't beaten before, or just continue to do something new. And I want to just help people. I told my friend that I trained today, I don't need to accept money from you. I know, you're low income, you volunteer for a living for Dropkick Murphys and all these other charities. Like, I'm not going to charge you. I just want to see people continue to get better, continue to get healthier. And if there's a way that I can encourage more people to jump into the sport, to do more strength training, to do more lifting, whatever else, I want to be that person. And
Mhm.
I want to help any way I can. So I never want to shame anybody. I never want to, try to be elitist or talk down to them about everything. I want to put everything I'm talking about into a way that resonates with you or with whoever I'm talking to, because if you don't understand it, you're never going to learn from it.
Yeah, which is awesome, and that's one of the reasons I love talking to you. I'm glad we do this segment, all the time with the two of us talking, because that's the way it should be.
Yeah. And it's just fun.
Yeah, it is, and it's one of those things. I think too many people worry so much about hurting someone's feelings. I'm one of those ones. Hey, man, tell me straight.
Yeah.
Don't pull punches. Tell me, tell me what it is. It's like, you tell me all the time. It's like, hey, we've talked about this. Why are you still being an idiot?
Yeah.
So, do it, stop just randomly doing stuff. It's like, you need a schedule. Yes, I do. I need a schedule,
Yeah.
And to get my, my training down right. I'm, not to sound, I'm gonna be 45 years old this year, got a few months. I'm not there yet, but almost. But
Don't need to rush it yet.
don't need to rush it. I'm not at 45 yet, but it's close. I've got like 2 months. But at the same time, I'm not 20-year-olds anymore. I'm not going to come back from an injury as quick as I have, did in my 20s. But because I didn't pay attention much in my 20s, I have injuries now that I have to deal with constantly. It's like my knees. It's like when I hit my knee, everyone's like, "Oh, wasn't that your good knee?" I'm like, I don't know if I'd say good. It's the better of the two, but neither one of them's really good. And that's the one thing, that as you get older, it's like, that's what I got to think about. And that's why I'm thinking more next year. I want quality over quantity, because I think the quantity is where I'm having a problem, is pushing myself so hard to do, like Seattle trifecta. And then a week later, I'm doing Hawaii, and I'm like, oh, why did I have so many problems in Hawaii? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I haven't recovered from last weekend yet, dumbass.
Mhm.
And that's kind of, and I know that's what you're thinking in your head, and I'm thinking the same thing, but, it's like, you haven't recovered from last weekend. You just, you didn't train to do back-to-back trifectas.
Mhm.
But here you are, because I've had this mental thing in my head that if I push hard enough, I can push my body through anything,
Yeah.
which I can. I have that mental grit to push my body through anything. But then the problem I have is I have to deal with the aftermath.
Yeah.
And then I'm
At
like,
what
why does
point
my
is it
body
too
hurt?
much?
Yeah.
And then you're spending more time recovering than you would have just for what? Earning a new medal or whatever else.
Pretty
Like,
much.
the risk reward doesn't always pay out. And especially when you're in an ultra scene or whatever else, like, we push ourselves to stupid limits. And then we're just so beaten and broken that we can't recover to the same extent. And then we're trying to go into the next thing, still nursing aches and pains from the last thing.
Yeah. And I think that's why it's good. Like right now, I have the month with nothing, where I had, I mean, over the summer, it was weekend after weekend after weekend. It was just race after race after
Mhm.
race, to a point where it's like, I haven't recovered from the one I did 3 weeks ago.
Yep.
And now I'm doing another one. I did Sisu, and then it was like 2 weeks later, I was doing Ragnar. I think I had one break, like maybe a weekend break in between. And then,
Yeah.
oh no, I didn't even have a break, because I did Sisu, and then I think I did a triathlon the next weekend, and then did Ragnar. So I had
Mhm.
3 big events right in a row. And it was an Olympic triathlon. So it wasn't even a small one. It wasn't a sprint. So I pushed, like, 3 big events one weekend right after another. Ragnar is another one where I did a lot of miles, no sleep and everything else. And then I'm like, why am I wrecked at the end of July? I'm like, oh yeah, I did, between June and July, I think I did 3 triathlons, Ragnar and Sisu. And then I'm like, why do I feel like I've been hit by a truck at the end of July? Oh, maybe it's because I haven't given myself any breaks,
Yep.
and that's one of the things that I definitely need to work on, is that planning and training correctly. And that's
Yep.
what I need to work really hard on. And that's my goal this year from
Good.
now.
I'm gonna hold you to that.
Cool. And if I'm not doing it, you have every right to tell me what a dumbass I'm being. So,
Okay. And I
which
will.
I know you will. So,
Well, I'm not going to listen too well because I do have a race this coming week, but it's just a dog obstacle course race.
I
So
will.
it's Boulder Dash, Doggy Dash. So it's actually just a fun little 2-mile run with
well,
my
that'll be fun.
dog as he climbs under cargo nets and through tires, and chickens out going over, any kind of real anything.
I
But
wish
it's
my
just
dog could
fun.
do that. My dog's he hates people, so but
Oh, my dog's just like me. He's like an outgoing introvert. He doesn't really necessarily need to be around people, but if you make friends with him, he loves you forever.
yeah, my dog's like 12 and hates everybody. So
My dog's 11 and a half. So I'm just cherishing every obstacle course race I get to run with him.
which is amazing. Yeah. Our puppies. They're crazy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they are.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go and we will definitely talk again soon.
Yes. I will talk to you soon.
All right. See you
Bye.
later. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.